Hey everybody, it's Ben here, founder of MakeFair, a platform teaching individuals and companies how to build custom software workflows and tools without writing code. This show explores the people behind the no-code tools and the stories of folks using them to automate work and launch companies.
Today on the show we have Mariam, who is working on a company called Softr, which is helping people build websites, marketplaces or web apps without writing code. Mariam, when you give us a brief introduction of yourself.
Yeah, hey Ben, thanks a lot for having me. I'm Mariam, an engineer and ex-director of engineering who turned into entrepreneur. So I'm coming from an engineering background and have been building software products and led product engineering teams for most of my career. And I have recently also started my own company, Softr, to empower 99% of the world who doesn't know how to code to build software products themselves without having to learn how to code. So I'm really passionate about the no-code space. I see it as one of the future growing spaces and really happy to share my thoughts on that as well.
Awesome. Well, it's not often that we have ex-engineers or current engineers, I suppose, who think like you do around no code on the show. So we've mostly spoken to people who are either building without code for themselves. But yeah, I'd love to hear sort of your journey of when did you come across no code and how did that sit with you as an engineer? Did you first think of it as like a fad, something that people just will get over, or did you see the opportunity straight away?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, right? But my whole career, basically, I have been building software products myself, and I have worked in 13 different companies, and I have basically seen really too much repetition in the whole software development, and every other marketplace, every other dating app, or most of the web apps, 70-80% are kind of similar, and you keep building the same functionality over and over, even as an engineer, and it just is so repetitive. On the other hand as well, I have been leading teams in engineering departments, and I have been hiring extensively for engineers, and I have really seen the scarcity and how the shortage of engineers, and it's like across the whole world, right? And every year there is 1.4 million software engineers jobs created in the whole world, and there is only 400k CS graduates. So there is really a huge gap of software engineers right now in the world. And this gap, I think, is not going to close anytime soon, because as everything becomes more digital, it's just going to grow bigger, if anything. So on the other hand as well, I mean, I do have lots of people who I know who tried to learn how to code, etc., but it's just really hard, and it's tedious, time consuming, and I mean, the code is still going to be around, but not everyone is going to want to learn how to code. So at some point where I left my job, I was like, basically I was brainstorming on different ideas, what I should work on next, and I wanted to start something on my own. And the idea was also with my other co-founder, why not to have basically a platform where all of these repetitive things are just given as building blocks, and you can use, as an engineer even, you can just use those components to not keep reinventing the wheel, and then you just build on top of that what's specific to your business. So that's how basically we came around the idea. But at the time I didn't really know there are lots of no-code tools, etc. And I started exploring the market, and I also found MakerPod as one of the first communities where lots of tools are listed. So that's how I basically got involved into no-code. I started also just exploring what's out there, what exists. And I mean, from an engineer perspective, I would also say most engineers are really skeptical about these kind of applications because, you know, first of all, they know how to code. It's much faster for them to code the same thing. On the other hand, they are very skeptic because of like security, reliability, performance related stuff, and how much restricted they are by the functionality that the tools provide. So I would say if the tool is really good and can just remove the repetitive part and automate lots of stuff, still giving the power to the engineers also to build on top of that, then at that point, I think engineers would be very open, even more open to accept and kind of use no-code tools as well.
Yeah. So do you think some of those questions, I suppose a lot of the questions around no code or the viability of no code is like they come from the engineering lens where they say, yeah, is it going to be scalable? Do you own your own, like, do you own the code that you've technically not written? How are you going to perform and how's it going to scale? Are you building Softr with all that in mind to try and almost maybe calm those questions or bridge the gap of, okay, we've come in through an engineering background and I'm really focusing on some of these pieces first?
Yeah, that's kind of part of it, not necessarily where we want to start with, because I mean, those are the aspects we understand that, especially if you are a big company, if you want to use this kind of tools, you already have engineers, and there has to be this like kind of basis for that to start with no-code tool. However, when we are right now very much focused on like indie hackers, makers, early stage startups to really enable and empower more non-technical people to just start building something, because what we are seeing is across the whole world, you know, like 99 or 90 something % of the startups fail, right, at some point. And they fail most of the time. They raise some money or they spend hundreds of thousands of euros on building an MVP, which is very simple, maybe marketplace or something similar, and they spend 6 months of engineering effort just to build that, just to create what they had in mind to validate their hypothesis with customers. And at that point, it's already too late, and they have spent a lot of money, a lot of engineering time, and then the company fails. So what we believe is that you don't have to do that, to go that route. You could just much earlier validate the idea, and then at a point where you have really some viable business idea, you are setting up and starting really a real company, a business that works and solves a customer problem. Then at that point, with Softr, we are also aiming to have companies basically start building their MVP, but also rely on Softr for the next several years until they grow much further. Even if they have an engineer, they could still extend the platform, like with external APIs. They can inject their own code snippets, etc., business logic. They can still do that, but we want to start from the very beginning and then kind of go along with the journey of the startup.
Okay. Yeah. So where is Softr focusing right now? What are the features? Because I can see on the website it talks about building websites, marketplaces, or web apps.
Mm-hmm.
So where are you right now? What are the kinds of things that people can build? So I know it's early access. What's sort of the nearer term pipeline for what you're building?
Yeah, so we have several kind of milestones for us, which we are kind of following. So in general, Softr is a no-code platform that enables non-tech founders and startups build responsive, complex web apps without any code. And the first version we are going to release pretty soon, in about a week or so, is going to be the very first basic version, which is just a website builder. So you could very easily and intuitively, within maybe 5-10 minutes, just build a quick website with pre-given building blocks and be up and running and start validating your hypothesis. And then on top of that, the other milestone is where you basically will have more complex functionalities, something like memberships, like authentication, payments, listing functionalities, search, and all of these other complex functionality where you basically can build a fully blown like marketplace or SaaS type of application.
Yeah, awesome. So how does this compare to some other tools? What was the gap that you saw that the tools aren't quite hitting? Because there's obviously loads of different things and people hack together like Webflow with another thing to do a membership site or something, where sometimes it's probably better to build it in one tool. There's lots of options, I guess, for people for doing different things. So I guess what was the angle you're looking at taking here?
Right. That's a fair question. And currently also the same marketplace you can build either with Bubble or with several tools connecting each other, right?
Yeah.
But the gap I'm seeing is what I'm missing to see is the types of no-code tools that don't require a big learning curve and are still powerful to allow complex web app building. Um, for example, if you were to use like multiple tools, you still as a no-code user, you have to learn all these tools, right? You have to know all these tools. If you're using Webflow, you have to kind of learn the Webflow designs, you have those design skills and still pay for all these tools to do the things together. And some of the crucial parts are as well looking from a technical kind of coming from a technical background. I'm very much thinking of like all these integration points. If something fails and you're just running a business, you have real customers. If something fails in between of these 5 different tools, you have to figure out what it fails and how to fix that, right? And it's all kind of not in your hands because right now also there is not really good testing tools to do all this integration testing, etc. On the other hand, when you're building with tools like Bubble, etc., so that's also like they're pretty powerful and you can still build what you want, but again, the learning curve is pretty big and you have to learn the tool itself. To me, that kind of misses the whole point of no-code tools, because in the first place, the no-code is supposed to help non-tech founders to do something, to build something without really having to learn the whole no-code or technical aspects, right? And that's the biggest part I'm missing. And we hope to see Softr filling that gap.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because lots of tools that have very powerful functionality are a bit more complex to learn. I mean, even Bubble has been on the podcast, but they sort of pride themselves on their
Right.
tool having like a learning curve. And even I think there's an article out recently about Notion and Rome. There's like the two wiki type
Yeah.
type docs, and then people at like the founder of Rome or something said like, oh yeah, well actually we pride ourselves on having a learning curve. But I agree with you where some people, especially when they're new to no code, need to have that aha moment straight away, or like be able to within the first 10-15 minutes be like, oh wow, I couldn't, like this is completely like pushed the boundaries for me, or this is going to do something that was so easy and natural to how I think about things, or
Right.
I think building blocks is definitely one
Yeah,
of those
I
things that you
mean,
sort of visualize.
the learning curve does mean to some extent that you can do powerful stuff and you have to learn how to do this powerful stuff, right? But on the other hand, I don't think that should prevent people to get into and build something quickly, because there is like, depending on what type of user you have, if you have very non-technical people, then they could get into and up and running very quickly with very like basic functionality in a much more intuitive way. And then you can still have the tool being powerful and have a learning aspect for more advanced users, which is something, yeah, when engineers come in even later on, they could use the tool because it's so powerful. But in the beginning, as you mentioned, I think that there's still a huge barrier for people to enter and build really functioning web apps really quickly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I really agree, and yeah, it's going to be awesome to see how much new things come out of different tools like Softr and others. So, where do you think there's a big opportunity for people to learn to sort of take no code under their wing? Where do you think no code is going to go over the next few years?
I think that's not really probably the best word to describe really this movement, and because it kind of implies a bit negative in it as well, right? And many people are becoming kind of skeptical and thinking, no, it's gonna remove like coding, etc. But it's never gonna remove coding, and the engineers are always gonna be there, I believe. And I mean, I actually think actually the vice versa. There is going to be even more engineers needed to build these tools and to work on really more sophisticated problems. But instead of engineers really doing all the repetitive part, which can be automated with these tools, so that this is what the tools will take away. Like they can still remove all the repetitive part, and then the engineers will spend their time on more meaningful stuff. I think in the future there is still going to be lots of engineers, there is still going to be many tools, and also companies who end up building on code. I mean, at some point when the no-code tools are going to be not enough for what you want as a company, when the company grows, when they have millions of customers and they have too much customization, just even from a price perspective, that might not be very might not be enough and make sense for the company to use no-code tools. But that's already so far away in company's lifetime that most of the companies failed before reaching that point. And then at that point, I mean, before all the companies, at least the smaller companies can start up, they can build and validate their hypotheses, build really running businesses. And then at some point there is still going to be engineers, there's still going to be lots of tools to do with code. And I'm just really passionate to see how far the no-code tools can take this software development forward. So and how little you have to do as an engineer afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with everything you said then, about the movement, about what's going to be built and how it's going to empower people. So yeah, we're going to wrap up shortly. And is there any other things you wanted to mention about Softr, or your background or thoughts on the no-code space?
I would probably just mention that anyone who is really interested to check out Softr can first of all just register on the waiting list on our website, and in about a week we will be launching publicly, so you can just try out the first version, the easy website builder, just to see, also to get the whole concept of using building blocks and whether that's really making it more easy, intuitive. And I would like to get feedback on that from lots of people. And looking forward to just helping the community and helping more people to get into software development.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks so much for coming on. And for people listening, the website is softr.io, so Softr with an r.io. Thanks so much for coming on, Mariam.
Thanks a lot for having me, Ben.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening. You can find us online at makerpad.co or on Twitter at makerpad. We'd love to hear if you enjoyed this episode and what we should do next.